It's just a beautiful day today, isn't it, to come together and worship the Lord indoors today? But it is a wonderful occasion. We can remember what Jesus has done for us on the cross and his great resurrection, and that he has provided that way for us to commune with him every Sunday. So I hope that we don't take it for granted, but we realize what a blessing it is for all of us to get close to the Lord by partaking like that. Now, I have one gift that I want to give anyone who wants one this morning. It's my little book here that is now available at Amazon. If you want to go to Amazon and pay $10 for it, you're welcome to do that. If you would like to receive a free gift of a book this morning, you're welcome to just come forward and get it after the worship assembly this morning. Now, Terry was driving down the highway going to Tucson. He was going to go to the University of Arizona. He's a teacher there. He thought if he didn't speed, he was going to be late to class. There was an unmarked highway patrol car that caught him, pulled him over. And he explained what the situation was, and he had pity on him, so he just gave him a warning. And he said for him to slow down, drive safe. And Terry, I don't know if he was a English teacher or what, but he said, excuse me, sir, it's drive safely, not drive safe. Well, then he went to his patrol car and he wrote out a ticket and handed it to him for $150. I think he was violating that proverb that's there, isn't it? A person finds joy in giving an apt reply, and how good is a timely word. It wasn't an apt reply, and it certainly wasn't a timely word for him. But he learned the hard way in that situation. Here's another example where we read about words being spoken, and James says that everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Now, whatever these women are saying to this man is upsetting him. They are saying words to him. They've got a message with those words, and they are affecting him. James gives one instruction after another of how we should speak. And the words that we use have a powerful effect on people, just as this picture is showing. Everyone's heard of this little proverb, but it's not really true. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Well, words do hurt. You know, a stone can be sharp and it can be hard, and it can hurt. But words can be the same. They can be very hurtful when they're used in the wrong way. So what James does is he goes over the importance of what we say and how we say it. One author called James, the book, the Practical Christian Living book. Practical Christian living. That makes sense whenever you look at it. Here in chapter 1, he says this, that those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. So in the first chapter, he teaches about controlling what we say twice. And then in the third chapter, he brings it up again. Consider what a great forest is set on fire by a small spark. The tongue also is a fire, a world of evil among the parts of the body. It corrupts the whole person, sets the whole course of one's life on fire, and is itself set on fire by hell. And why is that? Why is it that the tongue is so powerful? Because we form words with the tongue. And with those words, we give a message to people. And we hope that the message is helpful and builds people up. But so often, it doesn't. It tears people down. Now, that was a problem in the first century. It was also a problem 1,000 years before that when all the Proverbs were written. Is it still a problem today? Yeah. This is a very, it's a practical Christian living. That's what this book of James is. Here's several Proverbs that I want to show you, and it has a positive leaning toward them. Now, the first one is, what you say can mean life or death, and those who speak with care will be rewarded. I want to hear words that build me up, that help me, maybe through an illness. I don't want to hear words that put me down and make me hopeless. Here's another one. Pleasant words are like honey. They are sweet to the spirit and bring healing to the body. Pleasant words do that. And here's another one. The wise in heart are called discerning, and pleasant words promote instruction. So in chapter 4, James adds this. He says, brothers and sisters, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you are not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. Now, I'm going to explain what the law is in the next slide. But just think about this. The text implies several things, like what are they saying back there? Are they gossiping? Are they saying something that's inaccurate? Or they're greatly exaggerating what they're saying? Are the words going to affect this person that's in the forefront here? What is happening behind her back with the words being said? And another thing that we see here, speaks. It's not that the person does it one time, they do it many times. Anyone who speaks against a brother or sister or judges them speaks against the law and judges it. If you really keep the royal law found in the Scripture, love your neighbor as yourself, you are doing right. So we say, what is this called? It's called the royal law. Love your neighbor as yourself. I remember Jesus being asked, well, what's the greatest commandment? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. That's the second. And so this is the royal law. It comes from our King, from Jesus, and that's why it's royal. And it's royal in just how well it helps relationships. Brothers, do not slander one another. Anyone who speaks against his brother or judges him speaks against the law and judges it. When you judge the law, you're not keeping it, but sitting in judgment on it. Does that sound like someone is practicing the royal law? Love your neighbor as yourself. When a person slanders his brother or sister in Christ, or speaks against, or judges, that's not the royal law. There's only one lawgiver and judge, the one who is able to save and destroy. But you, who are you to judge your neighbor? It's as though the person sets himself or herself up above the law and above God. And you could visualize this with a picture of people talking. Are they saying proper things, or are they mocking, or are they making fun of, or even slandering someone? Like, what are these girls saying? Are they laughing? They are laughing. What are they laughing about? Is God being left out of what they're saying in all this? Or can slander happen if no one listens? Well, the people are listening here in this picture, aren't they? James commanded anyone who speaks against a brother or sister, someone is listening. So what are we to do? Are we just to sit there and listen to them defaming another person? Or do we try to defend that person? Or do we say to that person who's putting the other person down, okay, well, let's go talk to that person. We can go together. If we say nothing, if we just listen, what are we doing? Well, it's as John said in his second letter, anyone who encourages such people becomes a partner in their evil work. We can't just sit and listen. We've got to do something about it. So this is the first lesson that James teaches in this section, as well as these. 3 more. Let me give them to you. There's no thought of God in speech, no thought of God in planning, and no thought of God in activities. Let's notice the first one here, no thought of God in speech. Here's the guidance that Paul gives on how to get along with people. It goes like this. When he writes to the church at Ephesus, he says, Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. And so we need to be saying things that are helpful and build others up and benefit those who listen. That's what we should do. Here's a good example I was reading about how we should live our lives with words and kind acts. But first of all, I want us to notice what Mark Twain once said. He said, I could live 2 months on a good compliment. And I think about anyone can, because we hear a lot of the opposite, don't we? But a good compliment. Now, there was a teenager. He was out fishing for walleye. It was on the Minnesota and Canada state line, practically, a big lake up there. He's up there fishing. He cast out and he's pulling something. And boy, hey, it's pretty heavy. I've got a big one. And he's pulling it, and he's excited about it. And what does he have? Well, he caught himself, and sometimes you don't catch what you expect. He caught himself a billfold that was just covered with muck and moss. And he pulled that thing up, and they got it out. They cleaned it, and he found a driver's license, credit cards, and he found cash. $2,000 of cash in that billfold. $100 bills was all there. And he noticed that there was also a business card of a local rancher. And that local rancher happened to know this guy. And so they asked him to call and say that they had found his billfold with all the money. Of course, this guy, Jim Denny, he wanted to give them a reward for what they had done. Well, they didn't want a reward. We just want to give it back to you. It's just so wonderful that we could give it back. And it happened a year ago. He thought he would never see that billfold again, but he saw it. And it was just a wonderful experience for him. He wanted to reward this teenager who had caught it, but he wouldn't accept a reward. So he lived in Iowa. The teenager lived in Minnesota. Let's meet in Fargo, North Dakota at a restaurant, and I want to buy a meal for you and your family. And so they met. He bought a meal, and he rewarded him also with a little Yeti cooler, and he had it printed, a print on the top of it of a guy fishing for walleye. And it was beautiful. He gave it to him. Now, why do I even give this example? Does this sound like the royal law? Love your neighbor as yourself. That's what it sounds like to me. Yeah, words were spoken, words that were encouraging, that were thankful, appreciative, all of that. And it was just the royal law that was taking place. The second thing that we see in this passage is that there's no thought of God in planning. Today or tomorrow, we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money. James' second illustration is about leaving God out of our planning. And notice how careful their planning was. They had planned the time to start, today or tomorrow. They had planned the place to trade. One can imagine if they had a map pointing to a certain location on the map. And they had planned how long they will spend a year there. And they designed their activity that they would carry on business there. In other words, they're going to buy low and sell high. I buy high and sell low. I don't know about you, but they had planned the results. They're going to make money. And they would make a profit. They would get in quickly, make a killing, get out. But what's the problem with this plan, this scene? They're having a business. There's nothing wrong with having a business. Do you see a person who is a efficient in his work. He will serve kings. He will not serve unknown people, Proverbs 22:29. And also they're going to make a profit. Well, what are they going to do with their profit? Well, in Proverbs 22, verse 9, it says, the generous will themselves be blessed, for they share their food with the poor. Thinking about others. They're going to be making plans. Nothing wrong with making plans. In fact, God wants us to make plans. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. And so what's the problem? James writes, instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that. And in fact, you can get in real trouble by not making plans. But what if you make plans thinking about the Lord's will for your plans? I read this example of this woman, Diane Sweeney. She was a single woman. She only had a niece and a nephew. But she wanted to plan out her funeral. She had a card that she wanted to give away to anyone, just one person who attended. It'd be kind of a raffle drawing. Anyone who wanted to attend. Well, it was announced in the newspaper, and this 16-year-old girl saw it, and she decided to go with her older sisters, cousins, and some friends. They're going to go. They're going to listen to this woman's story, her life story that was presented on slides, and boy, it made an impact on them. The kind of life that she lived, how she cared about people, her career, how she loved her church, loved the Lord, and all of this. And what she wanted to do with what remained here was to give her car, and she had worked so long that she could have driven any car, but this was a Volkswagen that she loved. She could have lived anywhere with her retirement, but she wanted to come back to a peaceful stay in Oklahoma. And this girl came, and she won. And she was so excited when the call came that she was on vacation with her family, and they're in a hotel, and she's in the hotel room, and she receives this call, and she gets so excited, and her parents want to know, what is going on here? I've won a car, I've won a car. They get back to El Reno, I think it was, and she picked up that car. And her nephew said that a young girl starting her life as Diane's was ending, it worked out perfectly. She was always thinking of others, even after her death, which was one of her many legacies. And so here she was. She was born 2 months before I was. And she just died a little while ago. Although Diane had no children, she had the niece and a nephew who helped organize this. And our legacy can be seen in our children by what they are saying to their children about us. And may kindness, generosity, and love for God be our legacy. Was this the Lord's will for her to be generous with what she had to a stranger? Well, let's remember Paul's words to Titus. Show yourself in all respects a model of good deeds, who, that is Jesus, gave himself for us to redeem us from all iniquity and to purify for himself a people of his own who are zealous for good deeds. And so she was zealous for good deeds. She was in her life and in her legacy. So James is speaking against leaving God out of our plans. Look again at the words of verse 13. Now listen, you who say today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business and make money, there's not one word about God. No indication at all that they were even slightly interested in what God might think about their plans. If you were to ask them, do you believe in God? They'd probably say yes. But where is he in the plans? They left him out. I like this proverb because it puts God in the plans. Commit to the Lord. Whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. I like the positive nature of that proverb also and what it's forecasting. In the following few verses, James shows the foolishness of those who boldly said that we will do this or that without considering the will of God. Why? Why you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. They were foolish because they didn't take into account the uncertainty of life. They planned confidently for a year, but they didn't even know if what the next day might bring. They planned to start today or tomorrow, but they might have had their attention distracted to something else during that time. It might have been like their health, that they had a health issue, or maybe a loved one that became very unhealthy, and you needed to be there to be a carekeeper. It might have been that a loved one died, or something like that. There are so many things that make life uncertain. But to make plans, to do so, we need to include God in our plans. What is your life? We hope our life includes God in it. And so you know that James says this, you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. We know how a mist is. It comes for a little while and then it's gone. It disappears. That's the picture. The hands of the clock, you can see this, the hands of a clock just moving wildly around and around. Or you can see a calendar and the pages just turning. That seems how it is the older you get. That time rapidly moves on. And so instead, you ought to say that if it is God's will, we will live and do this or that. As it is, you boast and brag, all such boasting is evil. The lesson is, are we living in accordance with God's way in our jobs, our income, our plans? Another way of putting this is found in Proverbs 3, where Solomon writes, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your path straight. We need to be acknowledging Him. The final little point I think that he makes here is anyone then who knows the good that he ought to do and doesn't do it sins. That's not a sin of commission, it's a sin of omission, of not doing. This guy's not doing anything wrong, is he? He's just taking a nap. And that's one of the little things I instruct you to do in the book I want to give you. Take a nap. But this guy's just taking a nap. Is he doing any good? We don't see it in this picture, do we? Now, this person is doing good. Someone falls and you're going to help them up. Or just to be courteous, you're opening the door for someone else and they say thank you. And you say you're welcome. Those are examples of doing good. They even knew that they should do good, but were they? These are the people that were reading the letter that James sent them. Some have no opportunity to learn what the will of God is. Others have the opportunity, but do not pay the price in self-discipline to keep learning, to keep applying what they learn. Those to whom James wrote knew what was right, what was wrong, what was good, and what was not good. They even knew that they should do good. But here's the question. But were they? Were they doing good? So there's no thought of God in speech. There's no thought of God in planning. There's no thought of God in activities. Here's an example. If I could cure cancer and failed to do it, I would be as guilty as if I had personally inflicted the dreaded disease upon countless people. What if I could pray for people who are in pain, from a loss of a loved one, from personal illness, physical pain, a chronic disease, and I didn't do it? Would I be doing good? James says, but the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit. And sometimes the only thing that we can do in a situation is to pray for people. To let it be known, I'm praying for you. Because God listens. And He listens to our prayers. And He'll bless us for praying to Him. And so in all of this, God's royal law is in our speech. Love your neighbor as yourself. And that can be seen in many ways. Is God's way in our planning. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and your plans will succeed. Proverbs 16:3. And God's way is practiced in our activities. Are we reflecting the love of Christ in our hearts? And are people seeing it? Well, let's make sure we do, and that people see it. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you'll find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." If you haven't come to Jesus, you can do so this morning. You can meet Him